it's Lisa. I'm here with a card video today. I was working on these flowers yesterday for another project, and I thought it would be fun to do some for a card. What I've done is used some flower stamps to stamp my flowers on various, mostly jelly prints. Now some of these, there's a couple here that are just misted book paper, so you don't have to have the jelly plate to do this. And you could do this also with pattern paper. But I just was going through some of my scraps and things that, I'm just not going to use that much, and stamped on those because they're really easy to cut out off these papers, plus you get, that extra bit of design on there as well. And I thought it would be nice on the card to put them on a jelly print background. So I have a couple of green backgrounds here. Now I recently did a video called Move It and Use It and Move It to try to get some stuff out of my stash. The stamp sets that I am using today are not ones that I necessarily want to get rid of. This is the Time Well Spent stamp set that I think I bought from a friend who was getting rid of some of her sets, and I've had it quite a while. But there's quite a bit here, but I don't use it a lot, but I do really like the flowers, and this one from American Crafts I definitely want to keep. Now the backgrounds that I'm thinking of using were ones that were made one time before with this set that is in my Use It and Move It box, called Asian Inspired from Fiskars. I really love the background stamp here that looks like the dogwoods, but I don't use it that much. I don't use the rest of the stuff, so I am going to try to move that out. So that's probably what the flowers are going to end up resting on when we're done. I'm not sure. I may use some of these other jelly prints. But let's do some flowers and create a really fun little card here. You need good black ink. I prefer archival ink. And then some nice sharp scissors, and you can add some additional colors to your flowers with markers. Now I've got my Faber-Castell markers out here, but you could use like Stampin' Up markers for this, because you're not going to be adding, for this project, not going to be adding anything on top of them like Mod Podge or whatever that would cause the ink to smear, so it doesn't have to be a permanent ink like the Faber-Castell. So I'm just going to pick out some flowers here. A couple of these, and this one for sure, and I may try the big one too. I've also got this butterfly. I got lots of stuff here, and so let's find some papers. So I'm going to stamp several of each flower, and the archival ink stamps beautifully on all kinds of surfaces, so whether it has paint or mist on it. That first one there on that piece was a little bit dark. The background was a little bit dark, so the ink is not showing up quite as well. It'll just be a little bit of an experiment as to which ones I like. I'm finding that I really like having book paper and some of the thinner papers like deli paper and stuff with ink or paint on them. So when I'm doing my jelly prints now, I'm making sure that I do a few in book paper every time, because some of that white cardstock, after you put the paint on it and all, it gets so heavy that it's hard to use for some of these applications. But now if you don't jelly print, you can always put down a stencil and mist, or use some distress ink and water and add color that way to book paper. There's lots of ways of getting some pretty design on there. And then these cut out of this kind of paper really easily. So, and I'm fussy cutting, but I'm not that fussy because you've got that extra design and the color and stuff, and if you're not a perfect cutter, it's not going to show, which is good. So I'll share some of this cutting with you. This particular paper I'm cutting now is part of an architectural textbook. So it always has lots of drawings and interesting things that end up on my designs. I have book paper there's one there from a sewing book. There's music papers, all kinds of different things. I like a good variety of book papers to work with. And I've found that now that I have a few books, I've got lots of different things to choose from. It took me a while to accumulate those, going different places, but once I did, I'm just kind of using a lot of the same books over and over and get
you know, you never know it because you've got so many different designs and different applications. Now I'm adding some ink. These are the Faber-Castell markers. I'm going to find these to be a little bit too thick for some of what I'm doing, so I'm going to switch down to the Stampin' Up! Markers, which have a smaller tip on them. Faber-Castell does make a smaller brush marker. I just don't have them. I have the big brush markers. So I've done lots of stamping and cutting and coloring, and then here are some of my finished flowers. And I've put them on this green background, and I'm trying a couple of different backgrounds, and that one there that looks like a stem, kind of a flower thing, that's not bad. But it's not really what I'm going for this particular application. So after playing with those, I've really decided that I'd rather have a more neutral background. I thought the flowers looked good just laying there on the white card that I had. So I ended up finding some neutral color paper and using that. I have a stripe, and then I have a real tone-on-tone piece that once I flipped it over to glue it, I realized how old it was. It's something I had probably about 6 or 7 years now. But it was in my scrap bin and makes a perfectly fine card. And then the neutrals will also be real easy to stamp my greeting, birthday wishes. And I can't remember where I got the stamp. I either got it at Hobby Lobby or I got it at the dollar store. But it's a great little stamp just to have a little bit larger happy birthday kind of thing. The pink paper there is paper tray ink. This is some of the paper I wanted to work through out of my stash. I love the thickness of their papers. However, they don't come in 12 or 12, and which I use more for my layouts. So I don't really want to invest more in the colors, and they're so thick that I have to use different settings on my silhouette, and I don't really want to have to keep up with that either. So I decided to go ahead and move their papers out of my drawers and create a little bit more storage space. Now I considered putting some ribbon on the card, and then I decided just to do some washi tape. As it turns out, I had the perfect washi tape that just happened to match the colors that I was using. This is a My Mind's Eye washi tape I happen to remember. And we'll put those around and glue them on.
So here are our cards. Just made using some of my older stamps and some jelly prints and misted book papers, markers, and worked some archival ink there, and a little bit of washi tape. So not a lot of ingredients, but some fun cards, and I really love how the book paper adds a lot to the designs that you stamp on them. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I hope you'll check out some of my other videos while you're here.